Welcome to using Zoom web conferencing to teach. My name is Katie Walker and I am an instructional designer with academic innovations in e-learning at UAA. On my screen you're seeing my Zoom controls as I am sharing my screen in a Zoom session currently. In today's session we're going to go over the following objectives, primarily learning to set up your Zoom account, teaching a class using Zoom, troubleshooting, adding a Zoom session to Blackboard, and working with recordings. There's a lot of resources that you can find by Googling Zoom. Zoom itself has a lot of resources. Academic Innovations in E-Learning has a Zoom playlist, and University of Alaska OIT has a lot of information on Zoom as well. When you are teaching using web conferencing such as Zoom, it's really important to keep students engaged. Research shows that students will drift off if you don't have them doing something at least every 10 minutes. Some ideas to help are asking students to prepare by reading ahead of time or studying a case of some kind and bringing questions, or preparing presentations for your interactive synchronous session using Zoom. It doesn't work very well to just lecture on Zoom. We have other tools that can be used for lecture capture, making that a video. Giving students a chance to contribute is easy in Zoom because there are a variety of different ways. Students can use their microphone. They can also use chat to type in contributions. We have breakout rooms with small groups that might make it easier for students to contribute, as well as some other nonverbal ways students can contribute in class. Allowing time to think in an online session is important, particularly if you have rural and remote students that might have a lower bandwidth. So don't feel awkward about having some quiet time in an online session. You can also use a lot of the Zoom built-in tools such as polling and breakout rooms, but there's also a wide variety of tools you can use by using the screen share feature, which would allow you to share pretty much any other tool within Zoom. I recommend creating an active agenda for each online session where you really have something different every 10 to 15 minutes, keeping your students engaged and interacting the whole time. If you are just taking your course online this part of the semester, it's probably not a great idea to require students to attend synchronous Zoom sessions because that's not what they signed up for, and there may be some real reasons why they cannot attend a session at a particular time, but you can decide that obviously on what's best for your particular students. You can give them options for participating in class, and with the recorded sessions there are even more options for you to give students for getting the information and participating. So I'm going to now show you this website. I recommend that you go to the website and follow along with me. Going to alaska.zoom.us is a very important first step in claiming your University of Alaska Pro Zoom account. This is provided for University of Alaska faculty, staff, and students. So be sure that you sign in to this Zoom account before trying to use Zoom inside Blackboard or through your calendar, etc. So once you are logged in using your UAA credentials, you can go to your profile. This is where you can add a photo. You can also scroll down and link your Google account if you like to be able to set up Zoom meetings within your calendar. And if you're a Kaltura user, you can link it with Kaltura as well. You can set up meetings here as well as creating them in Blackboard or in a calendar invite. And when you schedule a new meeting, I just want to go over a few of the features quickly. If it's a one-off meeting, then I would recommend scheduling it for the exact date and time that that meeting is scheduled to begin and duration. If it is not, if it's something that's ongoing, I typically prefer to use a recurring meeting that is set for no fixed time. This means that I could use this meeting anytime, and that is similar to what I'm comfortable with using a semester-long session when we have taught in the past with Blackboard Collaborate. If you take a look at the settings and options below, enable join before host is often very useful for other people to be able to get into the session before you. And if you're using it for office hours, you might consider enabling the waiting room, which is a feature that would allow one student at a time for more private sessions. When you save a meeting, it gives you the all-important link that you can share to invite people to your session. If you set this up through Blackboard, then they'll be able to access it that way. But if this is for any other reason, you can just copy and paste and share that URL. The meeting ID is very handy for people that are joining using the Zoom app on their mobile phone. You can copy the invitation, and that gives you additional ways for people to join. So not only the Zoom meeting, which of course you can see the meeting ID is part of that link, but also a phone number where they will be asked for a PIN, which is also the same meeting ID. So that can be copied and sent to give people additional ways to join your session. So your full list of my meetings you can use to actually start meetings as the host. A webinar is for a large group of people where the participants are not able to use their mic. So for class sessions, meetings would be the more appropriate choice. Recordings will show up here as you record your sessions to the cloud. The settings is the important thing that I want to point out to you today. There are many features that will benefit you with teaching in Zoom that you would want to turn on that are not turned on by default. So take some time to scroll through and carefully read through all of these features. I'm going to point out just a few. So I'm going to scroll down quickly to the basic in-meeting. Notice chat's already on for you. One of the ones that I recommend is polls. Polling allows you to ask short multiple choice type questions that pop up on the Zoom screen. Engage your students in a question maybe to determine prior knowledge or to get their opinions, which is a great way to engage students in a class. So I recommend turning polling on. Screen sharing is on by default for all participants. This is one of the biggest strengths of Zoom, is it's really easy to share your screen no matter what your role is in the session. So students can easily share their screen, which is a very useful thing. You can also add a whiteboard, which would give you some annotation tools for brainstorming, collaborating, things you might use a traditional whiteboard for in a face-to-face classroom. Nonverbal feedback gives students another way to communicate using small images, emoticon-like things. And Breakout Rooms is one of the most useful tools, particularly if you have a large group of students, that allows you to easily put students into private rooms where they can collaborate on projects and they can talk to one another when it's not part of the recording, and that really helps to build community and give students a chance to engage with one another in your class. Also under settings, I recommend under recording, for accessibility purposes, check audio transcript, and I'll show you what that looks like inside Blackboard so you know what I mean. As I mentioned before, it's important to plan a fast-paced agenda for an online course. I recommend starting with some kind of a check-in where students can get warmed up and ready for the class and get excited and engaged from the beginning. You can plan discussion prompts, problem solving, case studies. You can have students collaborate in a Google Doc either as a whole group or in breakout sessions, and if you have them do something in breakout sessions, generally you bring them back to the main room to share what they have determined and compare with other groups. And you can probably think of several other things that you can do in a Zoom session. Some of the same things that you might do in a face-to-face session, such as inviting guest speakers and having students present. Some ideas for having students check in. You can have them use nonverbal feedback. You can have them use the mic and video. One of the nicest features of Zoom is being able to see all of your class, if they turn on their webcam, videos all together in little squares, which is a really nice way to build community and to be able to see one another. Sometimes that uses too much bandwidth, and so many faculty members make it a class norm to turn the webcam, the video button, on as you're speaking and then turn it off afterwards to save those who are on lower bandwidth. And a warm-up activity could include something where you're engaging the students in doing something that's related to the topic at hand, maybe some kind of a current event. You could even assign students to prepare some kind of a warm-up activity. This is an example of when you would have students actually use the annotation tools. It looks slightly different than what you're seeing here for students. They have a button that says View Options where they can get their annotation tools. And they can do things like circle the tools they're familiar with. They can use, they can actually use different stamps and stamp which tools they use. And again, this just gives the students a chance to actually interact. This is something that could be up. They could be doing this prior to class starting, and I find that that helps students get engaged from the beginning and also get to class on time. So some kind of a warm-up activity like this might work well. The annotation tools can be used with whatever it is you're sharing. So I'm sharing a Google slide right now. It could be a website or anything, and these annotation tools will allow you and the students to write on top of that. You can clear that, and you could also save that annotation. And so, let me get out of the annotations. There we go. And we can see that because I didn't clear my annotations, I have to now. There we go. Okay, so the whiteboard, as I was just talking about, share screen, has really such a wide variety of options. A whiteboard is just going to be a plain board, and I'll show you what that looks like here. That allows students to annotate on an empty space, which can then be saved. And let me go back to sharing my slide. So the polling feature is something you want to set up ahead of time with questions that students would then answer. Right now the students cannot see these questions until I launch the polling. And right now only I can see the results of the polling as students respond, but as soon as I end the polling, I have the option to share the results so the students can see. And again, this can be a great conversation starter to ask people's opinion on a controversial issue, or ask them to access some prior knowledge and see where you need to start, and maybe at the beginning of class. So polling is a nice feature that you have to prepare ahead of time. And compare that to just viewing the list of participants and having them be able to use these tools right here to answer a simple yes or no question where you can quickly see everybody's answer. So that's a simple yes or no using this nonverbal feedback feature compared to the full-blown question using the polling tool. So I already talked about student screen sharing, and this is just much broader than if you were to use a tool like Collaborate, where you generally have students upload a PowerPoint presentation having to be that particular file type, whereas when students share in Zoom, they can share anything, any application, if they decide to use Prezi or if they decide to use Google Slides like I am, and they can share a website or anything they want. So there's a lot that you can do with students be able to present in Zoom because they all have that sharing button without you having to give them elevated privileges. Now, breakout rooms. So breakout rooms are, as I said, very useful. And it's really nice because as you change the number of rooms, it automatically recalculates how many participants that would be per room. Once you create the rooms, you can manually move them around. Usually it's easiest to have them automatically created. Please take a moment to look at the options. The original countdown timer was a lot higher than 15 seconds. I think it was 60, and I found that to be a little bit too long, but you can take a look at all of those options. And you can't add yourself to a room until the rooms are actually open. So right now the students are all in the main room, but as soon as I click open all rooms, they will be put into their breakout rooms, and then I can choose to join one after the other of the breakout rooms and kind of go through the rooms like I would in a real classroom, checking on each group. When I hit close all rooms, they get an invitation to come back to the main room, and I have set it for 15 seconds for everybody to come back into the main room. So breakout rooms open up all kinds of opportunities for small group work in a synchronous online session. So one important things, that little noise is students coming out of the breakout rooms and people coming into the main room. And so troubleshooting, mainly it's going to be with audio and video. So up here next to the microphone button is audio settings. So that's the first place to go. It takes you actually to all the settings, so you can do the video settings when you're in here as well. This is something that I generally do at the beginning of each session just to make sure that things are working properly. And this is where you would tell students to go, right here under audio settings, if they're having any technical difficulties. Connection issues can be a problem as well. And as I mentioned before, when people share their video, which is their webcam picture of themselves, sometimes that is difficult on low bandwidth internet connections. So now I'm going to show you what it looks like in Blackboard. Here I am in a Blackboard demonstration course, and you will find Zoom listed under the Student Tools menu. Students can access it as well as you here unless you have it hidden, so it's of course going to be alphabetically at the end. That's one way to join Zoom meetings here in Blackboard. And another way is for you to make it a little bit easier for students by adding a menu item using the plus at the top of the menu, tool link. The most important thing is choosing the tool you want it to link to, and that would be Zoom again at the end of the list. But you can name it whatever you'd like. So I named mine that I created Online Office Hours, but it actually will take me to the Zoom tool. So whether I go in through tools or through a menu item I've created for that purpose, I come to the same place. So you can schedule your class meetings right here inside Blackboard only after you have set up your account in the Zoom site that I showed you earlier. It filters out the meetings to the ones that are associated with this Blackboard course, so I don't have to see all my Zoom meetings here. And it also shows cloud recordings. So I'm going to show you just two quick things. One, my office hours, as I mentioned before, I set up to enable a waiting room. I can create additional meetings in here by just choosing schedule a new meeting, and those would be specific to this Blackboard course, so that would be shared with them automatically. They would see it in here and that's how they could join, but it would also show up when I log into the Zoom site I showed you earlier, so they're connected. When you record, it does take a while for those recordings to finish processing, and if you have chosen to check the audio transcript that I mentioned in the settings, I'm going to show you what that looks like here. This was a very short recording, but it was a test just to show you this is how the audio transcript appears in a Zoom recording. you can, when you are recording a session, you can choose to record on the cloud or on your computer. And if you have it connected to Kaltura, your recordings can go to your My Media in Kaltura. And please consider accessibility by adding audio transcripts using the feature I showed you, or if you're using Kaltura, you can use the audio captioning feature there as well. And the review of this session. So we talked a little bit about making Zoom class meetings interactive, making sure that you have modified your Zoom settings to support using those different features in teaching. We showed you a little bit about running a Zoom class meeting, troubleshooting some common issues, and using Zoom in Blackboard and with recording. So I hope this has been a helpful webinar for you, and best wishes using Zoom for teaching.